just had a case where the wife engaged me. Husband had a lawyer. I see this, I do cases like this a lot where the other side has a lawyer and I'm negotiating with the other side's lawyer, but I'm doing it one-on-one with a lawyer. The negotiations were going well. They're grown children. They each are very successful financially. They each have their own business. This was not a case for alimony. It was not a case for child support. It was strictly a case of asset division, okay? Not a terribly complicated case. The wife with whom I was working was blindsided. She did not see the divorce. She did not see that her husband wanted to divorce until he gave papers to her. And notwithstanding that it's been a pretty horrible marriage for 18 years. I mean, they've lived apart for 18 years, but be that as it may. I kept saying, you're going to be so much happier as a human being when this is over. Okay, it was a question of which assets, which offset, whatnot, but they were going to be divided. Okay, not that complicated. But I wanted her to have use and possession of the home for a couple years, because I wanted her to figure out where her life was going to be, and I didn't want her to make rash decisions today. And yet she felt that she needed to stay in that house, even though the kids are grown and out of the house. And by the way, it's a very large house. They would not go for that. They would not go for it at all. And so she said, fine, I will keep the house. And even after all of my coaching and working on her and telling her she's going to lose a lot of tax breaks by retaining the house, she was adamant she was keeping that house. So she's the client. It's her call. My role is to make sure she's an educated client. How she decides is her call. And we worked out all the terms, and I said the house will be appraised and she will buy husband out of his share and the other assets will be divided. There was really nothing left, okay? Except for one minor tax issue about the house. In the grand scheme of things, this was a very minor tax issue. They said that they offered closing costs and brokerage costs, even though she was not selling, which technically they aired. They do not have to offer that. So that was a bonus for her, but I wanted a slight benefit with a tax issue that she was going to have relative to the house when she sells it, whenever she sells it. They would not budge with that. I thought I'm going to go back sort of with a Hail Mary and say, okay, we are at $20-some thousand with this tax issue. Let's split it and call it a day. That's where we were. The only issue was this minor tax issue that remained. And I do think a lot of times people are going through divorce, quite frankly, but I think some part of their brain, the left side and the right side don't always work together because they're in trauma. Their world has been rocked and turned upside down after 30 years living together. But that was the only issue. We had negotiated all the other issues. And then with that one final issue, I get an email from her saying, I've decided I need to hire a lawyer. Okay. So I say to her, you don't want, and by the way, this is someone who never wanted to litigate, doesn't want the court involved, says that the spouse is a narcissist. They all say the spouse is a narcissist. And had sent me 48 emails about how to negotiate with a narcissist like I'd never negotiated with one before, which I found a little bit condescending, to be candid. But then elected to go to a lawyer, and I followed up with her and I said, what do you think a lawyer can do for you at this stage that other than litigate, other than go to court? And I never got an answer. And there's nothing more. The property wasn't going to be divided 60-40. They weren't going to not have an appraiser value the home. She was going to keep the home. She was going to trade off other assets. So you know what? If she wants to spend $30,000 in legal fees, which is greater than the tax implication was, what can I do? I think it was a huge mistake. But unfortunately, oftentimes people think the grass is greener. And I just thought of an analogy. My daughter just got married, and there's a whole industry around weddings and what you need to do. And by the way, which I found out, if you're the bride and you get your hair done and you say, I want it done for my wedding, it is 4 times as expensive as if you go to that same hairstylist and just say, I want my hair styled, or I want my hair blown out. That's one price. You say, I want it blown out for my wedding, that's 4 times. Okay. So people think they get more value based on paying more, or, sometimes people feel like, well, a lawyer can give more, can get more. They can't. I have lawyers constantly calling me about family law. Will you review my wording? Do you like this? Did this say this properly? I'm like, you're the family lawyers and you're asking me. So and that's not even talking about the finances, which they admit they don't have a background or knowledge of. So it gets, as you can tell from my demeanor, it gets a little frustrating. Fortunately, it doesn't happen much, but when it does because they think the grass is greener, or there's a panacea out there that's going to do it better and has a magic formula that I don't have, and it doesn't exist. If you want to turn up the heat on a narcissist, you'll sue him or her. And that's the only lever that client had that I wasn't providing for her. And it was a lever she said she never wanted to pursue.